Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chris Warner. I am a gratefully recovering alcoholic, drug addict, food addict, sex and love addict, codependent, and debtor. I am also the adult child of an alcoholic. So this is a seat in which I belong in rooms like this with people like you. It's really an honor and a privilege to be here today. Thank all of you for coming along and joining in, and thank everyone at work behind the scenes to make this possible so that we can spread the message of recovery so broadly. Thank you. And last but not least, wow, thanks, Tommy. I will be forever grateful to you, Tommy Rosen, a big part of this journey. So here we are. Let's take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. Another deep breath in and a deep breath out. And I want to begin today with the prayer of metta. May we all feel protected and safe. May we all feel contented and pleased. May our physical bodies support us with strength. May our lives unfold smoothly and with ease. Again, deep breath in and deep breath out. It is such an honor to be here today. This is not a seat in which I ever imagined myself sitting. So I want to tell you today, the title of my talk today is Freedom, Integrity, and Joy. So that's how I live today, truly. And so my intention with this presentation today, if you will, is to perhaps inspire you and to let you know exactly how I do that today. In order to get there, I got to tell you a little bit about what it was like, right? My addiction story, and then what happened, and then what I do today. So, wow. So, I was adopted. I was adopted at 5.5 weeks old from St. Vincent de Paul Society, it's a division of Catholic Charities, a little north of Baltimore, which is where I'm from. I had a really great childhood, right? My parents must have told me very young that I was adopted. It was never an issue for me. My mother and father were my mother and father. I was loved unconditionally. And again, I had a really, really good childhood. I was a wanted child, right? My mom brought me home, chose to bring me home. So there's that. She died when I was 11 years old. Very soon after that, my father began to drink alcoholically, and our lives descended into chaos and abuse. I left home at 12. I did not end up in the Trailways bus station, a victim of sex trafficking. So as I look back today, you know, the divine had a hand in my life all along, but nonetheless, pretty traumatic. Left home at 12. Believed what I was told before I left home, that year of trauma. Believed that I wasn't good enough, believed that I didn't measure up, believed that I would never be anything, believed that I was unlovable and no good. My first sexual experience was rape, and I called it love. My second sexual experience was pedophilia, and I called it love. My third and first longer term romantic relationship was characterized by mental, emotional, and physical abuse, and I called it love. I hated myself. I thought that I was ugly and fat. When I was about 19, I discovered that I could restrict food. And when I say restrict, I mean I could not eat. I could live on black coffee and a bite of a little bite of a donut in the morning. And not only could I get thin, but I could get high. And so I did more of that, right? And by the end of, I think it was about a year of that, I was 79 pounds. But I thought I was all powerful. Somehow, somehow I began eating again. Again, as I look back, the grace of the divine was at work in my life, right? I did not die. I began to eat again. Very quickly thereafter, I discovered cocaine. And oh my goodness, wow, talk about high, right? No more worrying about not measuring up or not being good enough. I thought I was fabulous, right? And I stayed thin. So I did more of that. And what happened was, I lost my job. I lost my place to live. I lost many, many, many relationships. I hurt a lot of people, including me, but I hurt a lot of people around me. I was introduced at that time to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I did put down the cocaine. Right? I could not tell you one thing about what 12-step programs were like, et cetera, but I did put down the cocaine. Was never a big drinker. I had experimented, with Boone's Farm. I had experimented with pot. I had experimented with Quaaludes and speed and acid. None of it was, I didn't like alcohol. I didn't like pot. The other stuff, it was kind of fun, but it was more like an occasional vacation from life, right? But these other things, the food and then the coke, very soon after the cocaine came the addiction to sex and love. And I don't say this with any sense of pride, but I tore through people's lives. I was the tornado. I used people like Kleenex, and probably not even like Kleenex, more like generic tissue, right? It made me feel good. I felt powerful. If you wanted me, that meant I was okay. And so I did more of that. Then the shopping, which had always been part of my life, the overspending, the constant needing of props so that I looked okay, so that I looked like I measured up, so that you didn't really know who I really was, which was no good, ugly, right? Really took off. At one point, I had a big, beautiful house on the hill, had a wonderful husband. Well, I still have the husband, but we built this big, beautiful house on the hill and custom this and custom that, Italy and France and everything else. And I called in California Closets to build a cathedral for my shoe collection. And I thought this was great, right? Along the way, I did manage to get a world-class education, won all the prizes as an undergraduate, went on to get a graduate degree from arguably the best university in the world. And then my husband got sick. And I'm not here to tell his story, but he tells it openly. So I can share this with you. My husband got sick. He had a series of strokes. He underwent 9 hours of brain surgery, and he stopped drinking. My response to him stopping drinking was to immediately begin hiding mine. I had never considered alcohol a problem in my life before. I knew that there were times I perhaps had a bit too much, got a bit too animated, right? Never seemed like a problem, but my immediate response to him no longer drinking was to hide my drinking. Very soon after that, I became a blackout drinker and a daily drinker. And I couldn't stop. So as they say, alcohol became my master. Recovery for me is threefold. It's the 12-step program of action and recovery laid out in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's the 4 noble truths given to us by the Buddha, and it's the 8-limb path of yoga. Right? This is how it happened. Right? So I'd been hiding my drinking every day. The only days that I didn't drink were when I was too sick to actually get any in me. And so there came a point where I publicly humiliated myself. I was hosting a fundraiser. People had paid a lot of money to come to my house to hear, it was a poetry event, and we had Pulitzer Prize winners, et cetera, and I publicly humiliated myself. What I remember from that night is coming to in a closet in the corner crying. So the next morning I went to an AA meeting, and when I walked in, immediately, all the love comes, and there was a great sense of relief that I wasn't the only one who had ever done something like this. There was that great relief. And so I jumped in, and I think I stayed physically sober for a few months, and then I drank again, and then I stayed physically sober for a few months, and then I drank again. Then I stayed physically sober for maybe, I don't know, I think at one point I had 3 years, and I drank again. And every time that I was physically sober, not drinking champagne or Johnny Walker Black, I was doing something else, right? It was whack-a-mole for me, just as my entire life had been. I couldn't be present. I couldn't not medicate. And I didn't know what was wrong with me, and I was ashamed, and it was really painful. Inside, the person that I believed myself to be, the person that I wanted to be, was not the person that was living this life. And the dissonance there was the chasm was huge and getting bigger, and it was incredibly painful. Also, throughout this period, I had begun to practice yoga and meditation. My first yoga teacher was a Buddhist meditation practitioner. And so I began to practice several times a week. I didn't really get it. I didn't like stillness. I didn't like movement. I really, restless, irritable, and discontented. But I kept going, right? And something was shifting. Something was changing, and so I began to study the practice. I eventually, I did take teacher training, and I began to teach. And even throughout all of these popping up addictions, this constant underlying restlessness, irritableness, and discontentedness, I continued to practice. Now, what I can say is by the end of my drinking, it was very cursory. Like everything else that I did, everything I did was just get the check mark, get it over with, right? So I would go to my cushion, right? And I'd sit there tense. I could maybe get through 10 or 20 minutes, maybe, right? I'd do a couple of sun salutations and call it good. Everything was to get the check mark. as I said, I got to Alcoholics Anonymous and I couldn't, I couldn't get well. What I heard was, don't drink, go to meetings and ask for help. Well, I couldn't not drink most of the time. And if I wasn't drinking, I was doing something else. I'd go to meetings. And in terms of asking for help, I didn't know what to ask for. And in fact, here was my thinking. If you looked really pretty and you were well put together and maybe you like drove a Range Rover or something, I thought that's what I needed and wanted. So I would ask you to help me. I had no idea. I had no idea what was going on. And I couldn't understand step one, right? I couldn't understand. I didn't want to be an alcoholic or an addict. I wasn't like you people, right? I certainly believed that at some point I'd be good and I'd be able to sit at the Four Seasons again and have a glass of champagne like a lady, right? That's what normal people do, right? And I didn't understand that my life was unmanageable, that everything I tried, every bit of control that I tried didn't work. And we do have little Yoda here. There is no try. There is only do or don't do. And I was not doing. I was not doing. So things got pretty bad. I'm one of those people that it takes an awful lot of suffering to begin to get well. Yeah. So, bye-bye went the beautiful home. Bye-bye went the place of business. Bye-bye all the jewelry, the fancy bags and shoes, the artwork, the gold, all gone. Bye-bye. I did not want to live. I couldn't stop drinking or any of the rest of it. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I was filled with shame. And of course, today I know, addiction is toxic shame, right? And so I put together a suicide plan. I did the research. I knew that a gunshot wound to the roof of my mouth had a 99% chance of success. And so that plan was in place. I knew where I was going to go and what I was going to do. I had squirreled away some money to make that happen. And that's where I was. There were a couple of things that really blocked me from getting well. One was this grand intellect. How could, this quantitatively measured genius not be able to stop, right? How could someone engaging for 20 years in a spiritual practice and teaching for, now this year will be 21 years teaching, which is great, but how could a teacher of a spiritual practice, right, not be able to get well? I couldn't understand why none of this saved me. Well, as it turns out, I was doing a spiritual practice without any connection to spirit. Yikes, right? God and I had been long divorced. I thought that there was no God, and I thought that people who believed in God or practiced religion were foolish and less intelligent than I was. I didn't like the language of Alcoholics Anonymous. It was archaic and offensive. I just didn't get it. But here I was. Alcohol had become my master, and I couldn't stop drinking, daily drinking, passing out, day after day after day, with now a fully fleshed out suicide plan. And so, I don't know, one night, my husband dragged me to this meeting. I didn't want to go. I didn't like that meeting. I didn't like the people there. I was probably still drunk or hungover from earlier that day. But I went to this meeting and I heard this woman speak. And she spoke in a way that I had never heard before. And she had an energy about her that I had never really seen before. And it was reminiscent of some of my favorite teachers, Pema Chodron. She reminded me so much of Pema. And she had this softness and this light and this ease and this sense of joy. And what she said that night was that I live a life today free of fear. And it cracked something open in me. And, you know, Leonard Cohen reminds us, cracks are where the light gets in. A little light got in that night. And I knew where she went, so I found her and I asked her to help me. And the first thing that she asked me was, what is it that you're willing to do to be well? And thank you, universe, because my answer without premeditation was anything. And from that moment forward, the journey began, right? For me, what that meant was, you know, temporarily suspending disbelief, right? What I came to be able to do through the Big Book Step Study process in Alcoholics Anonymous was understand that on the one hand, I could believe that this wasn't going to work for me, that it was ridiculous, right? And pointless. And on the other hand, I could continue on and see what happened. You know, like many of us, I felt terminally unique. I thought I was so special, you know, that this hopelessness and this despair was never going to lift, that nothing was going to help me, that nothing could work for me. But I was able to do it anyway, right? And I did have, you know, again, thank you, universe. I had some experience with this. I had experience with doing a daily practice, whether or not I felt like it. So that was in there, you know, latent, covered over by a lot of debris, but it was there nonetheless. So I feel really incredibly blessed for that. But so anyway, this process, you know, she took me through this process. I didn't know that it was a program of action. I did the work. I did the work. I got honest. I came to a place of hope. I came to understand that Chris Warner is not the center of the universe. And in fact, so in case you are like me and struggle with the spiritual aspects of recovery, here's what happened for me. So I'm pretty blessed to live near the ocean. And most mornings, if the weather is okay, like if it's not raining or freezing, I walk the beach at dawn. I love it. I've been doing it for a long, long time. So one morning, you know, I'd begun this journey of recovery, you know, admitting that I'm alcoholic. Okay, I finally understood that I had this thing, right? And that my life was unmanageable. Walking the beach one morning, and usually I stand and I pause and I do a standing meditation. So I'm standing there. And suddenly the sound of the surf came to me so clearly. And, you know, this is something that I was doing every day, but this particular morning, I was filled with this sense of spirit. And it suddenly came to me, this is God. This is God, this is spirit, this is universe. This is what they mean by a power greater than myself. That morning, I understood, and it may sound crazy, right? But I finally, like, it clicked, right? The dots began to be connected. I understood, oh, there is a power greater than me. Chris Warner is not making the tide come in and out. Right? Chris Warner is not making the sun rise and set. Wow. So my first real clear spiritual experience kept me going, you know, and then I did the work. You know, I cleaned house. I got fearless and thorough and honest. It took a lot of courage and it built a lot of courage. You know, I shared that inventory with my sponsor, with God. I made all the amends of which I'm aware. I stand ready to make any I might have missed. I got a good look at shortcomings, all the ways in which I missed the mark. And today, part of what I do is live in the latter steps. So steps 10, 11, and 12, you know, I continue to take personal inventory, and when I'm wrong, promptly admit it. I seek daily through prayer, and I meditate to improve my conscious contact with God as I understand God, the divine, universe, whatever word you choose to use, right? And because I have had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, the result of these steps, I carry this message and I practice these principles in all my affairs. So freedom, integrity, and joy. Today, I am absolutely free of the obsession to use anything or anyone in order to feel better, right? That is just miraculous to me. I thought that if I were ever able to put down the booze and put down everything else, that I would want it, crave it, suffer over it for the rest of my life. And that is not the case for me today. I am free. I am today a person of my word. I am a person of integrity to the best of my consciousness in any given moment, right? Part of recovery for me is that every day more is revealed and I'm willing to not look away. I am right here, you know, and I live with joy today. So if anyone had told me years ago, first of all, that I'd be sitting here talking to, I don't know how many people about being a person in recovery, I would have said they were crazy, right? Second of all, if anyone would have told me I was going to be talking about freedom, integrity, and joy, I would have said, have we met? Right? I was a miserable person, right? Miserable. Everything and everybody was awful, you know. There's a guy that I know, and I love quoting this because it's so great. Prior to recovery, he said, my life could have been summed up in 4 words: F you and poor me. And that was my story. That is not the case today. Don't get me wrong, right? Life is life, right? Stuff happens. Every day is not 24 hours of dolphins and sprinkles and cupcakes. But what I can tell you is that I have not had a day that sucked in years. In years. I have, you know, some moments throughout the day that, you know, there's some pain or some angst or envy comes up, or you know, fear of other people's opinions, fear of not measuring up, fear of not being good enough. These things come up. Today I'm present. I am fully present and I can see them. You know, I live in joy today. There isn't a day that goes by that I am not joyful, that I am not connected in some way to wonder and awe and joyfulness and living. So how do I do that? So this is all fine and good. We all know how we got here, right? What do I do today? And here's where Tommy Rosen comes in. So as I said, for me, recovery is, this talk easily could have been called 12 plus 4 plus 8, right? The 12-step program of recovery, the 4 noble truths, and the 8-limb path of yoga. Because the spiritual principles underlying every bit of it is the same, right? In yoga, we begin from the foundation of doing no harm, immediately followed by truthfulness, right? Wow. We begin from the ground of moral restraint and ethics, right? The 12-step program, what is the solution? The solution is a spiritual one, right? And how do we do that? We practice spiritual principles in all our affairs. So we practice honesty, we practice hope, we practice faith, we practice courage, we practice integrity, we practice humility, we practice perseverance, we practice spiritual awareness, unconditional love, and service. These are practices. This is a program of action. Yoga, too, is a program of action. The Four Noble Truths explain why, what's happening, and a way out of suffering, right? That there's suffering in this lifetime. The reason that we suffer is because of craving, all that wanting. What is addiction? It's craving, and delusion, not understanding the truth of how things are, ignorance, right? Ignorance, not understanding, delusion, wanting things to be other than they are. The good news is that there is an end to suffering and there is a way out. So the 12 steps, the Four Noble Truths, the 8-limb path, this is the methodology. This is how I live today. There are simple guidelines, really simple. All we have to do is fully participate. So I was a long time practitioner of mindfulness meditation and yoga. I was a teacher for a long time. This year marks 21 years. Actually, next month, I'll be teaching for 21 years. And yet, despite all of that, like many of us, and as the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous tells us, I was filled with contempt prior to investigation. So in terms of my practice, I wanted nothing to do with Kundalini yoga. I had this real block, all the chanting and the head wrapping and all the weirdos. I mean, this is what I thought, right? Addiction to my own thinking, filled with contempt. This is addiction, saying no. Recovery is, opening, right? So, was introduced to Kundalini yoga through Maya Fines. She has this wonderful way about her, and there wasn't the head wrapping, and there was, it was an easy way in, and oh my gosh, the joyfulness. And so along I went, and wow, this is amazing. Because of her, heard about Tommy Rosen, so I bought his book and read it. Oh my gosh, right? Blowing my mind. For the first time, I got to hear somebody talking about alcohol and drugs weren't the only problem. And in fact, this underlying codependency, this addiction to looking elsewhere, this self-centeredness and self-seeking, this, wow, blew my mind. So I read the book, and very soon after had the great fortune with my husband to do a workshop with Tommy. And from Tommy, I learned sadhana. Sadhana, S-A-D-H-A-N-A, for anyone who doesn't know that word, translates as our daily spiritual effort. Hands down, nothing has been more powerful in terms of transforming my life. Through sadhana, I get that discipline that we all need. I begin my day every day the same way. And the reason for this is, during that workshop, I made a commitment. I created a covenant with Tommy. I said, yes, I will do this for 40 days. Now, make no mistake, by day 3, once I was home, by day 3, I'm going, I don't feel like getting up at 4 o'clock. I don't feel like it. Because of course I'm a giant toddler, right? But I did it anyway, because I'm now a person of my word. Well, I think today marks like 1,460 some days in a row without exception. So I want to tell you what I do to begin the day every day. Your sadhana might look different than mine, but I'm going to tell you what I do. I begin the day in prayer, prayer first. A gratitude practice, dedication of merit, and intention. I set an intention clearly every day. What is it? In fact, let's do this together right now. Bring your hands to your heart. Let one hand cover the other. And if it's okay for you, close your eyes. Take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. And now in one word, what is it you most deeply wish for yourself? Just state it, name it. And then open your eyes. So whatever it is, courage, strength, happiness, peace. Name it, speak it. Inside, softly, clearly, and succinctly begin your day with intention. Living with intention is the opposite of addiction, right? One way to tap into consciousness, to tap in to the wisdom of the universe, to connect with the divine. So intention. And then, mantra, breath work, asana, meditation every day. And then usually 6 out of 7 days, I do daily writing. I do a formal written step 11 every day. Well, not every day, 6 out of 7, I would say. And my daily readings. So this constitutes my daily spiritual effort, my sadhana. Now, lest you be dismayed and think, I can't do this. Believe me, there is nothing special about me. Anyone can fully participate in this way, right? The great news about sadhana is, we just came through a little COVID visit, and we were both, my husband was sicker than I was, but we were both sick, and the coughing and the breathing. The great news is sadhana can be modified to wherever we are. Practice meets us wherever we are, right? So maybe we're not doing the vigorous breath work or 21 sun salutations, but we can still do our practice. We can still make our daily spiritual effort. For me, recovery means no more compartmentalizing. It doesn't work, right? So for me, I need to address this body, this mind, this heart, these emotions, and spirit. And if you're like me and are dismayed by the language of recovery, Tommy and the Recovery 2.0 community have done a great job of reworking the 12 steps. They're called the 12 efforts. I think that's a beautiful thing. I had to choose to not let the language get in the way, and to just do and let go of the thinking. That addiction to my beliefs and my way and my opinions, this is all part of it. I had to open up. So daily I work on opening this heart and softening this mind, right? And my practice allows me to do that. And thank you, Tommy, and thank you, God. Hopefully this will continue every day. The other thing is that, make no mistake, as we recover, and I'm a baby, right? As of this past July 4th, I have 4 continuous years of real recovery. So I am a complete baby, a complete neophyte at this. But what I know is that if I fully participate in my life every day, if I do all of these practices every day, this is not work to me. This is my life, 12, 4, 8, all of it. I'm going to continue getting what I'm getting, which is freedom, integrity, and joy. I'm going to be able to continue to be a better wife and sister and friend and sponsor and sponsoree, a better student, a better teacher. What could be better than that? And I'm going to continue to see continue to wake up and continue to see all the places that still need some work. Right? And this too is a beautiful thing, right? It's a practice. It's a process, not an event. So one of the suggestions that I make when I'm working with people, whether it's in practice or in recovery, is fall in love with the process. It's fantastic. The other fabulous mindfulness-based suggestion that I offer is Baby Yoda. Please eliminate the word TRY and all of its conjugations from your speech, right? There is no try, there is do or don't do, and let's just get honest about it. I don't know about you, but back when I was still out there, as they say, if I said to you, I'm trying to stop drinking, I was drinking. I wasn't. What does try even mean? We're either doing or not doing. And quite frankly, whatever you choose to do is of no concern of mine, has no effect on me. But the suggestion is, let's just get honest about it. And one of the ways that really is helpful is this mindfulness of speech. Today, I'm not trying to recover. I am recovering every day. And continuing to work on aligning with the divine, God, that source of energy that generates, organizes, and disseminates. You know, the hand of the divine runs through all things. And I am connecting more and more each day. And that allows me to live the way that I'm living and to hopefully be of ever more service to the people that I love and to my world, right? My greatest wish is that we all are free from suffering and the roots of suffering. My greatest wish. So I think that's enough for me. I'd like to finish today. If you'd like to join me in, this is my variation of the Recovery 2.0 prayer that I learned from Tommy. So let's take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. Universe, divine, Great Spirit, God, please continue to put me in the places you want me to be, with the people you want me to be with, doing the things that you want me to be doing. Thank you for the joys and for the challenges of my life. May I be present and may I fully participate and may I be of service always. Amen. Satnam. Namaste. Because make no mistake, any day that we show up for ourselves and our world, it is absolutely a victory.